answer was, we'll do that one quickly.
And that was the response, obviously, before the law passed as well, is that we're not gonna spend the money to figure this out now until we know that we have the money to actually go through the plan. There's been a lot of discussion.
May I ask you a question? I didn't since the last meeting. And I'm looking at the phasing offsite two sites. And I don't know if you guys could weigh in, but it seems to me that the cost, 200,000 to 400,000, is a little bit low. And if you look at the portables per campus, that seems, it just is incongruous because you have the one side of 10. And I understand that both campuses have extra classrooms and you can absorb some of the student population, but if you consider that, you know, you have two groups of students at the Hills with 10, I'm not a math whiz, but it just doesn't have enough to.
So I think that's where, John, if we move into the next couple, he can speak a little bit more to those two examples.
Yes.
Hey, before we just, I mean, you don't know, and my understanding is this is something that we're not really pursuing, so you're presenting more like, hey, we've got the options, you're outlining it, on-site, off-site, whatever. I guess, can you just clarify, or for our understanding, like, it seems like if the people at Heights wanted to do this, they would do it, right? It's fairly self-contained, so I think the way it was sort of, or at least my impression was, folks at Heights didn't want to do this, and therefore it's not really an option. So I think for purposes of the rest of the discussion,
I would say that it wasn't presented as it's not an option. It was presented as that was the input that we received. And so what we're doing is we had input from one community up to that point, and we wanted to come out to the other communities that were involved now in the conversation and share. And then now we wanted to get all three communities together. So
I guess I'm just saying, like, I know there's folks from Heights here, and it seemed like if this was a good plan to rebuild the school, then this would be super simple, because then the people at the other two schools would be impacted. We have a much simpler discussion, so I guess I'm just trying to help us understand what is this.
And to bring up all your points together, particularly your point, if there's any kind of delay, you're looking at groups of students that are maybe not just, let's say now, in fourth or fifth grade, I'm not sure exactly how you're dividing up the two student groups. But if there's any kind of delay, you're feeding in students from Ocean Air, whereas if, for instance, you have one of the student populations broken up, and I don't see that as an option here, so instead of the two off-sites being the Hills and Ocean Air, couldn't one of the off-sites be the Hills and Delmar Heights? That would, as a parent of, in, you know, fifth grade the next year, I would be much more inclined to accept that option. So I'm putting to you, could that be a variation? You mentioned that you look at variations, could that be a variation as opposed to Ocean Air Hills? So, to be clear, the Hills accepting one group of students and Delmar Heights accepting the other group. I would put it to you, if there are any parents here that have students that are fourth or fifth grade at Delmar Heights to weigh in, I would tend to think they would be more amenable to keeping their student at the Heights.
During construction? During construction?
Well, I'm just putting it on the table. Well, for construction, I have a student that's learning in fifth grade who would be, I would be much more inclined to accept the two side proposals, the height and construction.
I'll just a couple things that are going on here, but I'll take that one first, only because once we leave some kids on the heights during construction, 100 kids, 10 kids, we now have to face construction. So we've got a 2-year duration. So the only way we can take advantage of adjusting the schedule is the kids are all off the site and the contractor can take on the whole site and build it all. Or we don't. And if we're going to leave kids on the site, then
Can
could
you
leave all this.
elaborate on that logic? I'm not following the logic.
Because you have kids on site that are going to school and going to class, parents have to drop them off, teachers have to work, you have to have an administration officer, you have to have a secure site, you have to, all the stuff that goes with a school. We've got to have construction fencing, the intangibles that we haven't talked about yet, are student safety, site security, air quality, noise interruptions, power outages, all those things that have to take place when you have kids on site during construction. It's complicated. And if all the kids can move off to another site, which wasn't even on our radar screen when we got hired, but it turns out maybe it's an option here, maybe it's not. But if it is, then all of a sudden now the entire construction site can be turned over to the contractor. They can take the old school down, build a new school, we're done. If we leave 10 kids on site, now we have to deal with where's their classroom, where's their food service, where's their library, where's the admin, where's the drop-off, where's the transport, teacher's workroom, all the stuff that goes into an operating functional campus, which means you've got construction fencing to manage the circulation between contractors and construction workers and equipment and materials workers, all that stuff. So I would say to you that if you want to leave kids on site, you might as well just leave them all there, because you're going to pay the price anyway. Otherwise, if you want to take advantage of the saving and time frame, then you move them all off-site. So having said that, there's some comments about the cost and why didn't we think about this before, or whatever it has to be. Having worked with a lot of school districts, a lot of bond measures, things of that nature, there are things you know, and then there's things you don't know yet when you're passing a bond, and things you don't know that you don't know. And there's some decisions that you can't really make until you get into the planning process. So the very first thing that districts do is identify what are enrollment needs, what are community needs, and in this case, identify the need to replace the campus, and establish a budget for what's a reasonable target budget to replace this existing campus. And the first thing we did when we looked at the district's master plan is, do they have a realistic expectation of what that target budget is? Because not all school districts do, and you can tell if there's going to be a problem from day one. You have a reasonable budget set aside for the construction of this campus. But there's a million decisions that have to be made once you start. And there's a million things that you don't know yet. Soil conditions, drainage issues, DSA approval things, code changes, all that stuff. So you set a reasonable budget, you start the planning process, you get all the feedback so we know what you actually want to build, because up until a few months ago, nobody really knew exactly what the community and the district really wanted to build until we went through this process. But we have a defined budget, and it's a fixed budget. And the district said, okay, we passed the bond and we set aside $40 million to build this school. Yes. So now, along the process, we've got to take what you want as an outcome of the final school, and what it's going to cost to build it, and where can we be efficient and cost conscious without compromising that vision. So, and so let me just.
Has the Del Mar Heights community opted out of this option? Yes or no? Because that helps us frame it.
I'm not talking about the option right now. I'm just talking about the cost.
So I'm just saying, some of those experiences, should I spend any time thinking about this, and what is the sequence of decision logic? Because what you're basically saying is that this is presented at Del Mar Heights says, we don't want to do this, so then let's find two other options. Whether or not that's true or not, I'm trying to understand the framework. So if Del Mar Heights has already looked at this, and they say, no, we don't want this, that's important to look like, and I'm not being friendly, I'm thinking about construction. So tell me the steps of logic, and I'm happy to listen to the rest of the people.
I'm going to work really hard to give you clarity, okay? All along the way, we're going to try to find ways that we can save money, because the more money we save in the designing of it, the more you can maybe avoid overrunning the budget we have, or have additional funds to buy things that maybe you didn't first think you could afford. So one of those options is to look at alternatives for phasing. Most of the time, you don't have this option. You have the option of saving time, money, and reducing student safety issues on site. So that's
saying no thank you to adding all these people.
I'm just telling you, you got options. It's just.
I would say that our goal is that we get to the point where we talk at the tables and you can tell us what you think of the options.
We want to hear from you guys. We want to talk to you guys. we want answers to our questions, and you still haven't answered this question. Has this been removed?
This is
Why
not,
are we
I will
doing
answer for the district. This has not been removed from consideration, or we wouldn't have brought it to you. So,
Do they want to do this, yes or no?
Well,
If they yes want to do it, then it's for all.
I'm a Heights parent, and I'll just say, we're not a big fan of this.
Yeah,
Let's move on.
that's-
Can we get on with the presentation?
We're trying to
There's a lot of defensiveness right now, and I want to hear what you say.
I'm asking for clarity. We listened to the same presentation several times.
The option is not on the table, we've discussed it many meetings.
So I would love to hear the definitive.
Nothing is off the table.
What is the definitive Del Mar Heights point of view? Maybe you guys can just tell
The
us.
main thing would be
consensus.
safety concerns. Where I would say from the parents that I've spoken to, it's all about safety. It's all about keeping the kids, in an environment where they're contained and that they are not breathing whatever that's coming out of it. And that construction workers, and that there is some responsibility as to how they are, in this. So we think that, I think, that go off of the name for safety.
I'll say, coming into all this, I was somebody that was on board with, oh yeah, we'll just keep the kids on site, it's totally fine. In my mind, it's like, they'll be on that side of the field, it's totally fine. And then through these meetings, I think that phrase, the statement that resonated with me the most was, if you think this is okay, you've never lived through a remodel of anything. And I haven't. I've never been in a house that's been remodeled or they've been built a house or anything along those lines. But when I started thinking about it that way, that my kid is going to be sitting there trying to learn 4th grade, 5th grade math, and is going to be hearing jackhammers and whatever else in the background. That's one of the things that really started like, oh, this is going to be a huge distraction just from the focus of our kids. Then you think about anytime we have somebody that comes onto our campus that's going to interact with the kids, they have to get fingerprinted and they have to go through the office. And is that going to be every single construction worker that comes in every single day? And is there then somebody standing there with a clipboard checking them in and out? And those are the things that, as a parent, you start to think of. So I think that's not to say that the Del Mar Heights parents get to say, yes, this is the option we want, and this is the one we're rolling with. We don't have any more say in this than any other school does. But I think all of us think about how this impacts our kids. And when I look at this one, I'm like, well, if somebody came to me and said, you get to pick and rank your options, this would probably be the last on my rank. And then when I see the price tag that assigns to it, and I say, well, I can have $5 million that's going to go either part back into my school or into some of the other schools, I would more choose that, the cheaper option. But that's, again, that's just me personally. That's just
When
me
this
personally.
presentation was presented to us at Del Mar Hills, and other folks who were there in copy, the way it was presented to us was, hey, here are the 3 options. We've already ruled out option 1 because the folks at Del Mar Heights said they don't want this. You're sort of like, hey, I 100% agree with you. I'm a parent. I would think the same way. Just put yourself in the shoes of Del Mar Hill parent, where you're like, well, okay, but you're talking about like blowing up the size of my school. My daughter could have a very uneven K-2 experience, and I think the point about it doesn't take 1 year or 2. So I guess that's where, again, I don't think there's any desire to be confrontation. I think what we're trying to do is find the right outcome, and that's what I think you're hearing from the people's frustration is you're kind of like, well, you're saying it's an option, but then all the Del Mar Heights folks say they don't really want it, so that's not an
Let's
option.
not talk about it.
Yeah, let's not start
If that's not an
and
option.
let's get, and so we want to listen to the presentation, but like this to me is not productive. I mean, and I would never want to suggest to these other parents like, oh, you should put your kid in this bad situation. So let's just, it's on the table. Cool. Move on.
Well, I totally appreciate your comment, but I think we look at it and say, this is a decision that this whole group needs to make, not you, not me. And we want to, if everybody in this room says take this option off the table, I can delete the slide right now. I'm totally cool with that. But it's not just for you to say, and it's not just for me to say, it's for the whole group to say. And that's the reason why we're here. And it doesn't mean we're going to present just the good options. We're going to present all the options, even the ones that we don't think are particularly good. I gave you the example, I think when we were at the Hills, or at all the schools. We're renovating La Jolla High School right now. They have no options. They have no parking. They have no place for portables. All they can do is a little bit here, a little bit there. So we've got 8 or 9 phases, all very intrusive in the middle of the campus with fencing and circulation security issues. It's very, very complicated and difficult, and it's very expensive. Most of the time, that's the only choice you have. So we analyzed it. If the group decides this isn't what you want to do, the district says take this off the table, then we'll take it off the table. But if they said do it, then we're going to be looking at budgeting so that we can afford to do it within the budget that you've given us. That's all. That's the only choice that we
I'm
have.
saying, let's free up the new space to find a new idea, right? I mean, we're not doing anyone saying, let's do A, B, or C. What we are saying is, if this is not an option or whatever, and I don't know how you want to decide, obviously, but, you know, it's a good decision, right? So, but, like, let's free up the creative space to use the time however much longer we're here to figure out some other.
She's saying we should move on to the next.
Yeah, like, whatever, let's ditch this if no one else is excited about it, certainly if the high friends don't like it.
I like that suggestion. So the second option, and this may be just as unsavory to everybody as like we looked at, okay, so if the kids are going to stay, if they're going to go off-site, but we want to keep them in the community, Delmar Hills seems to be the local. So we just did a kind of a test of fit. So how many vacant rooms are in there? How many portable classrooms would it take? Where could they possibly go? It's not a design, it's not a solution, so if it's not exactly where you want it, don't worry, it's not done yet. But we had to study what would happen if we wanted to put all the kids from Delmar Heights on Delmar Hills. Okay, keep in mind, Delmar Heights is about 8.5 acres. Delmar Hills is 6.8 acres. So it's already a smaller campus, so the site availability is limited. There's no hard courts to put buildings on, so if we're going to put a bunch of buildings on the site, they're going to have to go out in the field areas because it's the only space that's available. And there's cost associated with it because we've got grading and ADA compliance for accessibility. You put that many buildings on the site and tear down the other, impact the rest of the campus, doubling the school or tripling the school to the site. We've got additional restrooms we have to provide. There's lots of other complications associated with it. So we did a study that said, okay, and we had them on the other side of the building, and we were reminded, well, there's a garden over there. Okay, so we'll move the other side of the site. So we put on this site 15 portables. We'll have to add restroom facilities because we've got so many different kids. We need enough fixture counts to accommodate all of them. At some point in time, there's going to be need for a temporary administration because the office isn't big enough, the health office isn't big enough, the file room's not big enough. You're going to have Delmar Heights staff there, as well as Delmar Hills site staff, so there needs to be space for them. So we've got those pieces in there. There are things that we don't know. Is the electrical capacity on the site capable of accommodating the existing campus plus all the portables, or will we have to bring in a new electrical service or a temporary electrical service? I don't know that. We know there's limited parking already. When we triple the size of the school, it's going to be even more limited. So that's an impact we can't really fix because we can't make the site bigger. You could decide to allow parking on the field areas that don't have portables. That has other consequences, and they're not very attractive. There's not a lot of hardcore area, but you could temporarily park cars over there if you needed to. But that's some of the things we have to contend with. We've reduced the field areas, even under this scenario, by at least a third. So there'd be more kids and less playground areas. So it has some impact on that process. I mentioned ADA compliance and administration. When you put that many portable classrooms, increase the size of the school by that much, you trigger CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act. So there'll be at least some CEQA compliance requirement, whether it's a mitigated negative declaration or something that will require an analysis of how this impacts the community at large.
How many number of students are we talking about?
In this scenario, it'd be all of them.
All 500.
Yeah. I told you it wasn't attractive, but it's not. Stormwater detention, we'll have to deal with runoff and things of that nature. And then at the end, when you take the portables off, you have to put the field back the way it was, remove the temporary, any temporary facilities that had to go in. So there's some costs associated with that. We plugged in around a $2 million budget for building a temporary portable village. But like I said, there's a lot of stuff we don't know until, if you decide to go this route, there'll be a lot of investigation to figure out what that actual cost is and what the total impact was. And it would be for a school year and 2 summers.
I have a question. Has anybody looked at what is the psychological effects on the kids? Well, I moved from Texas to here because I wanted them to specifically to go to this school. I wanted them to stay there. I wanted them to build friendships that's going to last them a lifetime. You know, separating them and taking them here and there and everywhere. And it's just like, has anybody looked at the psychological?
Solana
effects of the
Beach and
kids?
Earl Warren did it in a year, and those kids all seem pretty happy with their new school.
Because that was a year, right? This
Yeah.
is, you're talking 2 years.
If they're off-site, it's 1 year.
We have a question over here.
No one wants to. And maybe make them tough.
One of the benefits of joining kids at a school, you know, if we can make communities come together, there are a lot of other resources that you can get at the school, that you might not necessarily get without those expertise. So you do have to keep the positives in mind along with the concerns. Secondly, my question was, you mentioned some things that you didn't have answers to, and I'm wondering, are you going to have answers before a decision is made, like you said something about the electrical situation, like how do we know that it's valid?
Like I mentioned at the beginning, there's things we don't know about all of the scenarios yet until we decide to get down that path. So the numbers, it's not going to be 2 million, it'll probably be a little bit more than that, but we're trying to compare apples and apples to say, okay, if this one's 5, then using the same assumptions, this one is probably 2. Which means if this one is 7, this one might be 4, but at least so that you can make a somewhat informed decision with some general information, because I don't think the district has the time or the funds to go into that level of planning and design and engineering on every single scenario.
So the concerns that you bring up can be fixed with money? I mean, are some of those concerns actually going to make this plan not doable? Like the electrical?
Well, that's a good question. Most of the things could be fixed with money. You can bring temporary power, you can bring it, you can put in sewage ejector systems, you can do lots of stuff. But there are some things that can't be fixed with money. You don't have enough acreage to solve the traffic drop-off problem in the morning when you have 3 times as many kids. If you left them on the heights, money's not going to change the fact that it's going to be noisy and there's going to be dust and other impacts. So there are things that are less tangible, and they go to the learning experience during that time period that could make a difference. If you had 3 times as many kids on a site and they've got to stagger the playground access because it's small, or staff has to park off-site because there's no place to park on-site and have enough space for cars to be able to drop kids off. There are things like that that, you know, they're just going to be impacts on the surrounding community, and there's probably nothing you can do to buy your way out of that.
I mean, usually this idea.
Because I don't think the heights.
I mean, if the heights parents get opt out of that, no parents get opt
And we're seriously presenting this as a non-option as well. So let's take it off the table. Let's talk about the third option. Let's just talk about the alternative. We're here to talk about it.
Well, let me say 2 things about that. Okay, one is I'm just trying to tell you how we look at it from a factual standpoint, from a plan standpoint. I'm not trying to spin it one way or the other, but I can see where it's headed, just like everybody else can. So the second aspect of that is that it's really your decision on which approach you want to take. But we're trying to anticipate the things the district will face should they choose this path. And if you choose this path, then that's what we'll do. But I'm just trying to get the facts out there so that you know. Those of you in the room might not realize what the triggers are for sequel compliance. So it's important for you to know that because it impacts time and it impacts cost. So that's the only reason for it.
What are the benefits we're getting from Del Mar Hill and Ocean Air to have these extra children come in? What are those benefits? Because I haven't heard any positives of
What about the
that.
money that'll be left over? I mean, I'm an Ocean Air parent personally, but I'm not excited about having those kids coming there. But I've been in another district where we did a bond measure, and by the end, the last schools, there was no money there left for those schools. So if you're Ocean Air, I mean, Hill would probably be the next school that'll get done.
Yeah.
So one question I have about is the most parents looking at is we're going to get this when we start doing construction on the hill, but the other thing is you want money to be left over because you want, like, Ocean Air's a newer school and we need new air conditioning.
Yes, we want money left over, but there's no guarantee that's
in our school or your school or their school, so, I mean, what is the benefit here? You're asking people in their communities to give up something, I'm just understanding what is the benefit for them to do that, right? I mean, there's a pro and con, a give and take. We're already paying the taxes it's gonna take to fund this measure. Now you're asking us to take another kind of blow, to take on more children in our schools, which is fine, but you're not giving anybody an upside. What is the upside? Because you talked about it.
Are your schools all at capacity already?
Can I just ask one question?
I mean, really.
Even this is sort of, we've gone through this, we've explained why some things were not on the table when the law was passed, and I completely understand that. But the parents of the Heights and Hills community who voted for this measure must have assumed that their kids are going somewhere when they go to school. Where did you guys think your kids were going? I'm just curious, it's not
They were gonna
value
stay in their
judgment.
school.
You assumed they would stay in the
Yes,
school rather
but
than
we
something
assumed that they
else.
were gonna stay in their school.
I was just curious because that would go back to my original question about there must have been a basic underlying
I'm a
assumption
Heights fan.
from the community and
Yes.
the district as to how this would pan out.
I mean, if you guys say we're getting extra resources and we're gonna get extra help and this and that, that's fine, but I'm not hearing that that's a guarantee at all. I mean, there's extra money, but again, that would go to other schools, and we're the ones that's having to deal with, the positives of everyone else benefiting, is what I'm trying to say.
One of the things that we look at as a district is where we do have capacity, and that is one of the things that has entered this scenario. And we need to provide that data. We happen to be in a situation right now where we have capacity at some of our schools, not all of them. So how does that or does that not influence this decision? The other thing that I keep hearing is talk about the kids. That's one of the things that we look first and foremost at. What does happen to the children, and how do we make sure that we ensure that this is a wonderful experience for them that I know can be a lifelong experience and a very positive one. And so much of it has to do with how we set it up to be that way. And we are very intentional about each one of these decisions and each one of these stages. And this meeting tonight will be helpful for us to hear from you what some of your questions are so that we can be thoughtful in making sure that we do those things that are not only obviously efficient with our resources, but also do what's best for our children. And so we do have capacity at some of our schools. They were built.
What other schools? What other schools?
They were built, some of the schools that we're talking about tonight.
So name them.
So we have capacity at Ocean Air, and we have capacity at Delmar Hills, and we have some capacity at Base Camp.
What about Torrey? What about Carmel?
We don't really have a lot of capacity of them, no. Some of our schools are full, don't have capacity. They're at capacity. We have several schools that are at capacity right now.
So three schools are Hayes, Ocean Air, and
The only schools in the district that have. Torrey Hills, for example, has a classroom or two, so I think that's another option. There are things that you could all be talking about if we use a classroom or two at a school, that's the other option.
why isn't that an option?
That is a multi-site, right, just like there's that's something that should be, instead of streaming two schools and two schools at capacity, why can't we spread that out?
So as a parent of every kid in Delmar Heights that is gonna have to be driving here, there, and everywhere.
I get it, so the option could be that parents would, my only point is that the district hasn't explored enough alternatives. There could be an option where parents would opt into one of the three schools, choose a school that they want to opt into that school. I mean, there are lots of ways to do these, rather than just being told.
Do you think it's better to separate the Heights community and spread them out everywhere than to try to keep them in that culture together that they've grown up with since kindergarten through fifth?
I just like the community coming together like this. That's the main message. I hate to jump in. What's your feedback been from the educators?
Meeting with them is that children are very resilient. Children are wonderful human beings that are strong, and children actually benefit greatly from adults who come together to make the decisions on their behalf. And I have seen personally children take away the most powerful, positive life experiences when they go through something like this. And they will develop relationships and friendships, and we will ensure that all of the educational programming and things that are really beneficial to our children are there for them, regardless if they're at one school, two schools, or whatever. So I have the, I don't even question that for a moment, if our children are going to be okay, because I know the teachers. And they would agree.
No, what's the impact on them?
That wherever our kids are, the teachers will be.
So we talk to the teachers of the secondary schools.
Oh, yes. I mean, we've been out and about in all of them.
Professional.
Yes.
I personally know a lot of them are not happy.
I haven't heard that at all. I just talked to all of them. I literally in the last 2 weeks at school, was at every school site, and they're actually very optimistic, very positive. All of the things that I want them to be for all of our children is exactly how they are. So, and that's what, that's exactly what I expect from, the most highly, regarded educators.
I think one of the biggest issues is that you're focusing on this two-site plan, but there's been no planning or thought process to how that will work and to how to present it to the parents. So how do you have a school with two schools in one school? What happens to your PTAs? What happens to your programs? Do we have separate
So
programs?
let's move on to the meeting, because that will be some of the questions that we want to make sure
And then
that we get.
also something else is STEAM. Like what happens if Del Mar Heights hasn't met their STEAM quota and Ocean has?
Well, we did.
Has. But the next year, let's just say next maybe this year, but next year, or vice versa. How does that work too? With
I have all the confidence that this community can make good decisions and do the right thing.
but you don't have a plan. Like if you have a plan, like
This is
if
part
we're
of the
moving
plan.
forward with a plan, like
This is
that's
part of the plan.
would
So John, I
help
would
us.
ask if you would put you.
You are by definition not listening right now. We're trying to provide you feedback. You're hearing a lot of dissent, and you're trying to just march forward the meeting. Like, the point of the meeting is this.
Yeah.
What you're hearing is
Thank
that
you.
people are satisfied. So we're not trying to say we're in opposition to your plans. What we're saying is the options don't look good. So please listen to us. Don't proceed with the meeting. Keep having a discussion. We need to get some different options. Looks like slide 1 can be deleted. I tell you from the Del Mar perspective, go ahead and delete slide 2. Let's talk about slide 3, which nobody likes. And let's do something different. Let's not keep talking about the same stuff. We're all frustrated. I don't think you heard anyone saying yes to anything. So yes, let's move the meeting forward, but let's not keep banging our heads against the same wall. I think that's the frustration. Like, you're not listening when you say, let's keep going with the slides. Please.
I think did you just say moving forward? Because I think that is also, I agree with you about that. And I think that our very aggressive other options.
The nice thing is that what is the benefit to the other constituencies that are impacted? This nice gentleman just said, what about the Heights culture? The Heights culture. These are substantial issues which we're not getting to. What about the Hills culture? What's the benefit to Ocean Air? Those are questions that we don't have answers. That if you can resolve those, we're making progress tonight.
I can't resolve them all.
Let's
But
talk about the important things.
here's our experience with this process. You study and analyze the facts to see what makes the most sense. And once you get enough information to say this is the direction you want to go, then you start asking other questions and analyzing additional facts. There's a lot of things about school culture and PTA that have come up that haven't been resolved yet because we don't know which path we're taking, but they're gonna have to be dealt with. We're gonna have to deal with it, we know that. So
we're going to go through each decision-making process where we decide what we do, and then we're going to figure out what it is.
well, you make decisions based on information you have. And you make gradual steps along the way as you uncover information.
So that being said.
What I was just going to say, part of our goal is to share with you what we know about the phasing and construction process that will impact the decision. It's not all the information. A lot of the information is going to come from you. But what we know about the phasing and construction process and how it impacts schools and how it impacts the construction schedule, that's the information we're trying to give you. And the reason is to help you make a better decision. Because you're bringing your half of the information, we're bringing our half, and the goal here is let's put it all on the table and see if it results in a better answer than either of us would have come up with individually. Okay?
Right.
Any one of us can go in a room by themselves and make a decision based on the facts that we have. But it's a different dynamic when everybody else brings the remaining facts into the room that we can make a better informed decision. That's what this process is all about, yes.
Right, but I agree with him, we're already telling you we don't like these three options. So how about we look at something else? 'Cause I don't think Ocean Air is happy, I don't think Delmar Hills is happy, I don't think Delmar Hills is happy.
When you guys want to live aside, honestly, I'm an engineering therapist. I'm okay with the kids coming to our site. Honestly, I'm okay with the kids coming to our
But
site.
there's
I
no
just think-
logistics
well,
worked out.
well, that's fine. I'm just coming to their own plans, right? I sign that I would be okay with the kids coming to our school, happy to welcome them. My problem is that I feel it's not thoroughly thought out. And we're going to be blindsided by something that we haven't seen.
Right.
For example, like over here, I'm just looking at the portables and their hostel. It doesn't add up. It seems like what percentage of the height students will be coming? Will they be K to 4 or will they be 3rd to 6? Or what grades are we talking about? How many kids are we talking about? How come it's only 2 to 4 portables if it's option 3 versus 10 portables in option 2 and versus 15 portables in option? And then the cost doesn't add up either because then based on 150,000 per cost, and then there's busing. Is that busing being paid for all the students? What if the kids are being driven by their parents? What if they're not bused? What happens to parking? What happens to wear and tear at the schools where they're being posted? Are we talking about additional supplies? Are we talking, have we included those costs? I don't know what else we're missing. What's cost to remove the portables? What else are we missing? I'm happy to host, but I feel like this decision blindsided what I thought was going to happen when the prop was passed. And I personally went out and called and I would pass prop on it. I'm for believing new school and I'm for welcoming other children. But we have to make sure that all the data is in front of us, that this doesn't happen again. Like I asked before, the Heights parents and the Delmar Hills parents must have assumed something while voting for Prop 11. They must have thought, oh, it's fine, maybe the kids will stay in portables for a year and construction got done. And now it's going to be 2 years, so obviously they don't want their kids sitting 2 years in portables in construction site. But there must have been an assumption, there must have been a presentation, which I was not part of. What was told to those parents?
Parents ask over and over and over and over again what would happen. What would happen if that was not.
So that is a misstep, or there's a lack of communication then between the district and the parents, because then what else are we missing now? If you didn't know that then, what am I missing now? I'm reluctant to go forward with anything unless.
I have a quick question. The size of the classroom.
The size of which classroom?
We have two classrooms here.
Are you talking about the portable classroom?
No, I'm talking
The number
about
of the students.
To add to realistic concerns, yes.
So that will not change. If we move students in groups of, say, kindergarten, first grade, you would have the teachers that would be teaching those kindergarten, first grade students. And so you'd have the same class size. The Delmar Heights students would have their same teachers. The Ocean Air students would have the same teachers. Delmar Hill students would have the same teachers. So we'd be moving students through a similar kind of matriculation path so that you still are able to keep some of that sense of, my sibling had this experience with this grade level team if they're still together, and those pieces with your cohorts of grade levels. If in this scenario, we have, I think, K2 and 3-6. But regardless of the scenario, if it's 3 schools, say it's K1, 2, 3, 4, 6, those students would go together from Delmar Heights to another site. Their teachers would go with them to another site. The class size would remain exactly the same. The STEAM plus allocation would remain the same, or we may need to do some adjustments to help support you. There would be admin support. So those are all things we know that we will be doing to support it. And then as we look at where this would happen, there is, should we move, for example, with this plan? I'm not saying we are. But if we move forward with this plan, then we would be spending a fair amount of time, myself, others, supporting Mr. Stanley, for example, and Mr. Swallow, and then the PTAs, the communities come together to talk about how would this roll out. So we're making sure that we are integrating where we can integrate, and we're making sure that there's some of that piece that you might hold together when you talk about Delmar Heights and having some of the common teachers in there. So those pieces would stay, and there would be yes, there is planning to be done, but we need to be in front of you with, here are the options, and then we need to be able to move forward with helping to support that planning over the course of the next year so we make it a really positive and constructive.
I actually go back to her point then, that the first two options are complete non-options if we look that the way it has been presented. Like, you may as well have told this community that this is the viable option. Let's now discuss how to make this work. That would be a far more fruitful meeting than us looking at this, because if cost is the only thing to go by, I can't understand how this cost is so much lower. Maybe it is this low. Then what is the percentage of difference? The difference in cost, you're talking about a couple of million here. What is that as a percentage of the bond, how much money it's raised? We're raising 800 million at this point?
No, 189.
So it's significant. I mean, or it's not significant. Like, if we didn't save that money, how would that impact our schools? I mean, if that was made clear rather than just throw a number at it, I don't know if even $100,000 sounds significant or not. Even $50,000, $50,000 or not. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this information.
Let me see if I can clarify a little bit about the number of information, cost information. We don't know yet what it's going to cost to put portals on the site, because we haven't done a lot of the community investigation. But when we renovated San Marcos Middle School last year, finished it, we had about, you know, it was on time. But that's not that's not the point of my message.
It's relevant to us that are going to be affected by this.
It had a similar number of portable classrooms that we're talking about. So we use that as a benchmark for the numbers. We have a number of schools where we've got a few portables here and there, and we know what those costs are. There's discrepancies because the cost to run a temporary water line out to 10 portables is not much difference in cost to run a temporary water line out to one portable. So there are some costs that are not relative to the number of portables, it's relative to just the providing utilities. So there's variables like that. And that's why I say, don't look at these numbers as a detailed, accurate picture. They're a relative number, so it's approximately in that range, so that you can discern this option is twice as much as this option, which is twice as much as that option, just so that you can actually decide, do we want to spend more money and keep it here? Fine. We don't know what that dollar is going to be, but we know it's going to be twice as much as this option. Or do you want to save money and use it? So it's just to give you a benchmark so you can say, okay, let's go to the next step with this idea because the other two don't work. If we had just brought option 3 and said, we've looked at all of them, we think this is the best option, you would have been telling me, well, what were the other options? How come we didn't look at the other options? And we're trying to get everything in front of you that we think. So we're trying to get all the thought process that took us from this to there, so that you could see how we got there. And if you think that was a mistake, we should go back to option 1, then just say so. But at this stage, we're just trying to give you the benefit of our experience so that you can see these are the things we think are viable options. Is another option to spread it out over 3 campuses or 4 campuses or 5 campuses? Well, the district thought about that. But you know what? The reality is you have to look where there's capacity. Because, and there's a couple of schools that have some empty classrooms that have capacity. So that's a good place to start the analysis with those where we don't have to rent portables. And those schools, if you fill those empty classrooms, you're not exceeding their capacity, you're just actually filling it back up to the size the school is designed for, so there's less of a burden on the other support structures, the offices and the health office and the food services and the parking and things of that nature.
So then what should be included in this presentation that is, look, the money from here would then, like you said, be split up between hills and ocean and for our benefits. So it's also going to benefit your community. This is the best option. It benefits all of us. Heights gets to keep its kids in a safe, secure environment. And you guys get $2 million each or whatever for upgrades to your school. And everybody's happy.
Why do you need something? Why can't you be part of the community?
We've done it. We've voted for Prop M if we were not part of the community. Now I think we are part of the community. We passed the bill, we're paying for taxes, we're totally supportive. Okay. We support it.
Okay, we have a question here.
We initially went into this, and this actually is earlier. I assumed that we would teach our kids together on the site, and then we kind of started getting into it a little bit more.
I'm sorry, we're back there, I can't
Oh,
hear you.
I'm so sorry.
No.
I assumed we would be keeping all of the Heights kids together on site.
Yes, thank
And
you.
then- But so then we started exploring it a little bit more and realizing that wasn't necessarily an option. So I instantly went to, okay, well, where are all of our kids? Because I want our schools to stay together. through the various meetings and digging into this, it really became evident that there's no place within our district that can house all of our kids and have it make sense. Frank, I assumed that if we were going to do that, it would send all of our kids to Ocean Air. And knowing that half of our school could potentially go there and people aren't happy about it, I can imagine what the feedback would be in our entire schools getting relocated to the fields and all of that. So I want us to come up with an idea. That's why I keep splitting up and just filling classrooms here and there. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever because then all of a sudden people have multiple kids or, you know, kids that have friends one grade level to the next. I mean, that doesn't make sense at all. Then it's our school just being absorbed by the district. And I know that that's what a lot of people are fearful of, is that all of a sudden it's not just going to be the Heights and the Hills on the same campus. It's going to be the Hills and all of a sudden the Heights kids are filtering in. And I know that's not what the teachers want either. And I had a conversation with several teachers actually yesterday about this. And they want to feel that wherever they go, they still feel like it's the Heights. And we still get to have our dance fest, and we still get to have things that are part of our culture, which is what we're trying to
add the Hills perspective here, because I appreciate you sharing some.
No, that's fine. I can't give you the Hills perspective because.
Well, I would say it's from the Del Mar Hills perspective.
Can I finish what I was saying though before you interrupt me? I get it. Can I finish? Can I just finish what I was saying?
Let's let her finish her point.
And I promise I'm almost done. I know that this isn't ideal for any of the schools, but the reality is we don't have unlimited options. So I think this is coming down to the best options. I'm not in love with this, but I never raised my hand and said this is a huge problem unless I can come up with another option. And frankly, I'm out of it. I don't know. Unless we're picking up and going to a school over in Swan Beach somewhere and saying, hey, we're going to rent your field, which that definitely doesn't make sense at all. So I encourage everybody, if you have another option, to bring it up. But it feels like this is our 500th meeting. And if this is what we've come down to, then maybe this really is the best option. And I'm not saying I'm in love with it, but I trust you guys and I trust the district that they've also exhausted and really gone through all of our feedback and said, okay, based off of what you guys want, this is the best option. And maybe that's me being naive about it. But I agree with you. If we're going to move forward with this, I want to see the list now of what happens. Is my kid getting picked up at his doorstep on a bus? Am I dropping him off?
Yeah, and I'm sure that there
school? Am I dropping him off?
absolutely.
Yeah, like
I
all
think
those different
there's
details.
more about, my gripe is more about the lack of details than the actual plan. To be very honest, I just feel like there's something that, like, and where the bus is going to get parked.
How does that affect?
And how does it, and how do we
We have a
drop
quick
our
question over here.
buses are-
We have someone with their hand up.
First, I'd love to clear the air of all that. I'm a Spanish person, I'm really stressed out. We're all very passionate to our kids, so that's all that really matters, right? I'm coming from Glen Heights, I have 2 kids. Ultimately, I'm with everybody. This does make the most sense. Do I love it? No. I have to go to 2 different places. I enjoy walking my kid to school. I bought a house in the neighborhood in Heights because I knew I would have this time when they're this little to be going through this. I did vote on it. We did get a new school for a lot of reasons. We didn't know what was going to happen. But I feel like if we move forward with this, I would appreciate support from the other team. That makes me a little anxious too, of knowing the energy is maybe not wanting our kids on campus. Like,
I don't think it's not
wanting
my kids, my daughters was like, tell me about this meeting tonight. And they were like, how awesome would it be to have Olivia and Lexi at my school? So excited to go to right? And those are Ocean Air and Del Mar kids because they play sports. It's not about the kids. It's all about how we present it. Right. Yeah. And I think we talked about it in our meeting. We talked about it. We need to welcome them. It's about it's about the details, and we're just trying to understand how do we make sure that the Heights culture stays the Heights culture, the Ocean Air culture stays the Ocean Air culture, but yet they're integrated and they feel welcome because we want the kids. And like you said, the resilient, they don't know the difference. They're just like, okay, we're great.
So, yeah, I don't think I ever meant to say that this is not, but I think it just goes back to how communication is being done by the school itself. I think that's the big problem.
What would you want differently? Because we are trying really to communicate and involve, which is why we are having so many of these meetings. And one thing I will address about that when you said how it's being presented, this is the process. There is no other process.
I'll tell you how pretty
as far as,
different.
just one second. As far as over a number of months and getting people involved and listening, we do want to do exactly what you're saying. So I do really want to hear when you say, you know, how it's being presented, what would be more helpful or what would be more, how can we do that?
I can talk about myself personally, maybe some of the parents feel this way. Like when the measure was being passed and a lot of questions were being asked, I assumed that this situation about where the kids would go was somehow already being addressed. I did not know that this was a decision that gets put off until later, started. It would have been very nice to know that up front as well. Like, hey, these are some unanswered questions. Maybe people wouldn't vote for it at that point, but I believe in good faith I would have, because I believe that is, like you said, that the district has the interest of children in mind in general. It's nice to know that these are the unanswered questions, but we can get to this point. Like there has to be a transparency in the decision-making process, that this is the process. This is how we start. This is how we are going to go through it. When we come to this point, when we have the money is when we will hire the architects to make up these plans. In the meanwhile, we would like the community to mull over what options there could be. The first
kind of like saying, we're all going to come to your house for a big dinner and you have 3 days
I think
to
to
prepare.
revisit it and be like you're talking about makes sense, and it's what we've been doing as we've done it. So the great thing is we have your contact information now tonight. John is there. I know I'm looking at the time.
Well, I would share something with you. And I'll start with how many of you have been involved in building a house or things like that? Okay. Good. So you know there's like a million decisions that have to get made in that process. And this process is what we refer to as an iterative process. You have a general idea what you want to do, you evaluate the options, you make kind of an initial decision. And then you move forward with that and you evaluate new things. And it's like the stepping, we're trying to cross a raging river and we're trying to do it together, and it's scary. And there's some stepping stones along the way. You have to take them one at a time. You can't just jump from one shore to the other. It'd be nice if you could. And you learn something along the way. Every step you take, you learn something new. You gather new facts. You make new decisions. We've analyzed a few things. We've put some facts on the table for your consideration. How does the community feel about it? Well, that's the point of the meeting, is to find out how you feel about it so that we can get other facts out on the table and the district can decide. Does that change the decisions we assume based on cost or location? Or does it affect the decisions that the district still has to make, which is how are we going to accommodate your family, your kids? And how are we going to get your kids to this school? Is it going to be busing? All those are decisions that still have to be made. And this iterative process, it's a pain because every design project is a custom design. You can't go in and say, okay, well, oh look, there's a couple of pens. I can decide which one I like best. Well, it doesn't work that way. You have a kind of an idea, you want to build you need a writing utensil where you have to decide how big is it going to be, or what color is it going to be, or how much do you want to spend on it. So you make these little decisions along the way. It's not a product. It's a custom solution. And the custom solution requires us to go through this painstaking, iterative process of making decisions based on the information we have at that point in time. And hopefully, if we're smart and we ask enough questions, we answer most of them correctly and get to the next stone across the river. There's no easy process. And if you've been through this process building a house, you know you didn't make all the decisions the first day you started. There's no possible way to do that. And Rich and I have been doing this together for 35 years, and we wish there was an easy button you could push, but there isn't one. It's just, you get to this stage, you get new information, you make another decision, and you make another one. And pretty soon, if you made pretty good decisions along the way, you get to the other side, all in one piece, and you haven't fallen in the river. So that's all we're trying to do. And if we work together at it, and you help us understand what matters to you, some of that's going to influence the things we draw. Some of it's you're going to have with us, and it's going to influence the things that the superintendent and Chris and his team have to structure and put together on your behalf and to solve those other issues. And there's different problems that have to be solved in different ways. So, as to the sense that this sounds like a pretty conflicted meeting, it's been really productive because it told us a lot of stuff that we as architects have no way of knowing about you. I mean, we all have kids. We've been through this. I had to drop off 4 kids at school for decades until they were finally all out. But I did all that. But now we know a little bit more about what matters to you, and some of that might affect what we draw, but probably a lot of it's going to be in the next stage of the execution. How do you implement this? And do you have busing? How do you split the grades up, all that stuff? And that's for people smarter than me to figure out. All we do is we'll take the draw. I'm glad that way. So, for what it's worth, it's frustrating for all of you, I'm sure, but this is just the nature of the design process.
You don't have to do an EIR for this project?
Yes, there will be.
Okay. And the coastal commission has anything to do with it?
Yeah, they'll have a ball in the game too.
So what's the timeline? What, do you have a deadline that this is need to be made?
Well, our timeline is to get the school design, and our goal is to have the design, the initial conceptual schematic design done by fall, and we're on track to do that. How it gets phased, I mean, sometimes.
Like John said, they're designing the school, and we've got, we want to take the time that's required in order to go through what we need to do about recommendation and decision.
Yes, Superintendent, as my vote, I vote to have them in one place, not separate. Because we don't want our principal to be in two different places. We want them to be in one place. So if that is an option, the second one would be better than the third one. As a parent that has two kids in two different classes that are going to be separated.
So the option that lady with raised, would that be considered?
Everybody at Delmar Hills. Everybody at Delmar Hills.
Dear God. Pacific Highlands, would that be considered?
The problem with Pacific Highlands Ranch is it's not built yet, but it needs to start construction around the time that this would start construction. So there are some real complexity. We can try and put some thought to it, but on the surface, I have a hard time seeing how that one fits together. I think it's...
Why don't you explore? I feel that it's actually going to address a lot of concern.
Because we have some concerns about the campus at Delmar Heights and the longevity of some of those portables and
This
how that...
portable cannot last another 2 years. That you say?
No, when your kids move to their first grade and it's a wrapping station over a period of a break and then no, it's a big process and it's very expensive.
Here and underneath.
And then there's nowhere to move from because there's no extra space. So no,
If you really want to know, I mean, some of those companies onto the government sites because St. John's has plenty of.
So there are some... I'm sharing some of the things that would make that a very, maybe more unlikely experience. But we can look at a few of those things. The other piece that comes up is, as we've been working with John and with others, is the longer you delay construction of a big project, the greater escalation goes. And so the overall cost of that project. So it is not something that we can't have some thought around, but I'm just sharing some of the reasons why it is maybe hasn't been as investigated.
Environmental impact review with the neighbors.
I can understand the concern, let's just put it that way.
Yeah. And if you look at the drawings, all the winds go straight into my house.
But that's something we'd have to do a little bit of work on. That isn't something that we analyze.
Maybe that's something
So we want to make sure that, and our stream of communication is continuous, and actually it's easy to find on the website. We can even, make sure that we send this group all where to find when you have input, because you might think of things as you're leaving your guide, or maybe you want to say it for whatever reason, that it's helpful for us to hear in real time. You can email us, and you will get a response. You got it, we will save it, we will keep it, it will help inform as we're doing our work over the next couple of months, and then bring everybody back together in the fall. So I'm just conscious of the time, and I want to make sure that we have some closure on this meeting.
Can I get one ask for a next step for us? And the intentions are good, if not, for the Oceanair parents that are here, and I'm one of them, could we ask for a meeting with Chris and Holly and whoever else as a next step, that we get together with you and just talk a little more about this as just Oceanair with you?
So hold another, like a site-specific meeting?
Site-specific, we can do it here, or we can do it there, whatever, but just the parents can use this as a core group, because we were here, we took the time and showed up, and we seem to be the most interested and involved. I'd be interested in that, and if the others would be, let's start there.
At the same time,
Maybe in
that the
next couple
Hills
weeks.
would also like to.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Yes.
You can, but I just want Oceanair in our, and I'm not trying to do it to be divisive, but it's just all over the place. And so I just want, just thinking Oceanair parent. Either way, or we'll meet without you, but it'll just be easier if you're there. Then let's talk a little bit.
I think our getting people together and saying like that, that's all I think we are public faces for all of the meetings. So, and we're happy to bring people together, and all of the community meetings at all of the school sites have been open, and there have been various community members at all of them. So we should have another copy with the principal, right? And you guys should come. Absolutely. Well, the principals are off for the summer, but obviously. Because there's parents that are aware, yeah. Absolutely. Like those parents. I thought you meant earlier. I thought you meant no. Okay.
Can we get some information over the summer of like kind of what worked and what didn't work with our previous experience in our district with you said it happened before? It would just be nice to understand like what worked for them, what didn't, and learn some things from that experience that we're gonna probably go through or may not go through. You know, it would be nice to know what challenges they face that
We
they
have all that we, yes, all that we can learn and have learned and share with everybody. So Chris will send out, how about we send it for the people who have RSVP'd and know here tonight, you provided your information, so that you're easy, you know where to find things on our website, you know how to reach us, and then we'll be in touch with all of you about a meeting, when we come back after the summer stuff. Thank you,
Yeah, I think we need a group of people that I need to get their name. Hold on, I need to get names.